Welcome to the May 22nd, 2023 Troy City Council meeting. We're honored this evening to have Pastor Christina Hallam from Northminster Presbyterian Church to provide our invocation. So please rise for our invocation and remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance.
So for just a quick moment of context for this prayer, as the pastor of Northminster Presbyterian Church, we've been working hard on a community garden that we are just about to launch. Our grand opening is on June 3rd, but because of that, I've been working a lot with gardens and thinking a lot about gardens and thinking about how cultivating plants is similar to cultivating a community. So that is the context around the prayer I have for you all today. So I invite you to take a deep breath in with me and let it out, and join me in prayer. God of abundance, when we read the story of creation that we find in Genesis, we read that you created a garden and you called it good. We also read that you created humanity and you called us good. Then afterwards you tasked us with the help of the cultivation of this garden, of the abundance of your creation. You asked us to pay attention to how things grew and tend to the needs of creation. And it is by this invitation to be the caretakers of the land and the plants and the animals, the invitation to be stewards of your creation, that you also invited us to join in the very act of creation alongside of you. We have created with the gifts that you have given us. We have created art and music to tell of the beauties of this world. We have created homes and created families. We have created community that we might create a world together and hold tight to the things we love. We've created schools that we might learn and libraries that we might store that knowledge. We have created parks and roads so we might both enjoy your natural creation and go around from place to place with ease to enjoy it. And we created storefronts that we might share with what we have created with the others that are also creating in their own lives. And so together we have joined together in the cultivation and the creation of this community we have come to love and appreciate, this community of Troy, Michigan. God, while we do not always live up to the call of your goodness, the call of creation, of being co-creators with you, we strive here in this room to do our best. Tonight we have present the ones who have stepped forward as the stewards and caretakers of this community that we have created together with each other and with you. We ask that you guide them in their discussion, in their discernment, and the decisions made. We ask that they might be guided by your wisdom that was present with you at the beginning of creation, when you pulled us out of the very soil of the earth. We ask that you stir in their hearts, that the people in this community might, and their well-being might be the first in their minds. We pray that fear and anxiousness might fall away so that disagreements do not breed distrust. And so together, might we all work together to continue to cultivate, to continue to create out of your abundant gifts that you continue to pour forth on everyone. So we pray all of these things in the hope of your continual new life. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. I appreciate you coming this evening. I'll officially call the May 22nd, 2023 Troy City Council meeting to order and ask for the roll call from Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham? Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Krenga. Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Here.
We do have quorum this evening, but there are 2 members who will not be present in the chambers this evening. Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Krenga will be participating via Zoom, but as an electronic participation, she's unable to vote this evening, but is here for discussion. And I did receive notification from Councilmember Abraham that she would be out of the county this evening and unable to attend. So I'll move resolved that Troy City Council hereby excuses the absences of Mayor Pro Tem Rebecca Chamberlain Krenga and Councilmember Edna Abraham at the regular City Council meeting of May 22nd, 2023, due to being out of the county.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt, that we excuse the 2 absences of the members as read into the record. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Motion carries. There are no certificates of recognition and special presentations this evening. There are no carryover items and no public hearings. I don't see anyone has signed up for public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses, so there'll be no response. No postponed items this evening, so we move on to regular business. I-1 is board and committee appointments. There are no mayoral appointments this evening or city council appointments. I-2 board and committee nominations. I have no mayoral nominations this evening, and there will be no city council nominations this evening either. So I-3 is a request for closed session. I'll move be it resolved that Troy City Council shall meet in closed session as permitted by MCL 15.268E, pending litigation, Gilman versus City of Troy et al.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve I-3 as read into the record and printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes. Motion carries. At the conclusion of our public meeting today, we will recess and then pick back up in closed session in the council boardroom, where I suspect that we will then adjourn the meeting for the night after that closed session. Next up is I-4, lease agreement amendments for Camp Ticonderoga restaurant operations. That'll be introduced by our Recreation Director, Brian Gould. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Council. The item before you is one amendment to extend the agreement between the City of Troy and Gallatin, Inc. to add the additional 5-year period to the current contract, which would expire on May 1st, 2031. The second amendment is for approval to transfer the current lease agreement for management of Camp Ticonderoga from Gallatin, Inc. to 5725 Rochester Road, LLC. Both of the lessees are requesting that the June 1st, 2023 date in the assignment and assumption agreement be changed from June 1st, 2023 to July 15th, 2023 to ensure the issuance of a conditional liquor license to the new lessee. Peter Vanderkay, a real estate broker, was consulted on the contract, and the prospective lessee was vetted by staff as well as the broker. I am happy to answer any questions you have, and the current and future lessees are here and available to answer any questions you may have for them as well.
Thank you, Brian. I will note for council, there is a late submittal on this with an updated agreement with that date changed to July 15th. Just a heads up. Any questions for Brian? All right. And someone like to move the resolution? Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move I-4, lease agreement amendments for Camp Ticonderoga restaurant operations as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Brooks, supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt, that we approve I-4 lease agreement amendments for Camp Ticonderoga restaurant operations as printed in the agenda packet, but as supplemented by the late submittal with the date change. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is I-5, contract amendment and budget amendment, water slide repairs, the Troy Family Aquatic Center, also introduced by our Recreation Director, Brian Gould.
So this item is a contract and budget amendment for the water slide repairs at the Troy Family Aquatic Center. Upon arriving at the facility to start the work on the flumes on the water slides, Safe Slide Restoration found that additional repairs were needed due to excessive deterioration. They finished the interior of the slide today to ensure no other delays in opening and that the slide is safe to use. They will return after the season ends to complete the exterior of the slides, of the flumes for the slides. The project was previously approved for $95,001.50, and the additional repairs will increase the total estimated cost of the contract with Safe Slide Restoration of Farmington, Missouri to $101,377. This amount will require a budget amendment of $1,177 to the Troy Family Aquatic Center Capital General Fund. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Brian. Any questions? Anyone want to move this resolution? Councilmember Hamilton.
I'll move I-5, contract amendment and budget amendment, water slide repairs at the Troy Family Aquatic Center as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve I-5, contract amendment and budget amendment, water slide repairs at the Troy Family Aquatic Center as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galton?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-6, City of Troy Master Plan, Release Draft Master Plan for Public Review, and that'll be introduced by Brent Savadon, our Community Development Director, and Ben Carlisle, our Planning Consultant.
Good evening, Mayor Baker, City Council. Nice to see you again. I'm going to introduce this topic, but it's going to be a tag team presentation of both myself and Ben Carlisle of Carlisle Wortman Associates, our planning consultant. I'm going to start off talking about planning, what it is, what a master plan is, and why it's important for communities to plan, how it relates to the zoning ordinance, and then Ben is going to talk about the process that we've undertaken to get to where we are today with our master planning, including some of the public engagement efforts we've made. So the reason we added this component, an educational component that kind of talk about why we plan, is looking at the membership of council. In 2008, we adopted our first comprehensively updated master plan in about 40 years. And I don't think any of the members here before us were on the city council at that time. It was amended in 2016. And I'll get into why we amend and the requirement to amend in a second here, but it was amended and we made some slight tweaks to it. We added some sub-area plans. And then in 2021, we made a determination that it was again time to do some amendments, even though the base document was in really good shape, it needed some more fine tuning. And because not all of you had gone through those processes, that there was merit in providing an educational component. So here we are. So the first question, why do we plan? If you go to the Oxford Dictionary and look up the definition of plan, there's a definition. A plan is a strategy to achieve something. So if you look at all of us in the room or watching on TV tonight, some of the things, activities or events that we plan, birthday parties, vacations, retirements, we put together a strategy to achieve something. And we look for things like, in terms of why we plan, creating a vision for the future, anticipating change, creating predictability, using limited resources wisely, and protecting quality of life. And planning for land use is no different. But one of the differences is when municipalities plan for land use, they're required to meet the requirements of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, Public Act 33 of 2008 as amended. And that basically defines the master plan as the only official adopted document that sets forth an agenda for the achievement of land use goals and policies. A master plan is the policy regulating land use and development for communities. And there is a requirement in PA 33 of 2008 that at least every 5 years after adopting a master plan, Planning Commission is required to review the master plan, make a determination if it's still appropriate or if it needs to be amended or just comprehensively updated. So that was done in 2021. Again, that was in the midst of COVID, and we've had some challenges related to COVID and some other things, but we're before you this evening with a draft document. What is a master plan? Again, it's a general statement of a municipality's, in this case, the city's goals and policies, synchronizes public improvements and private development, provides a clear indication of a city's direction for the future, serves as an educational tool. There's an educational component in our master plan. So for anyone picking it up for the first time can have kind of a primer on what this document is meant to do. It serves as an aid in daily decision making, and it provides a statutory foundation upon which zoning decisions are made. There's a strong link between the master plan and the zoning ordinance, and I'll get to that in a second. There are a lot of elements that can be included in a master plan, and this is not all inclusive, but it can include an infrastructure component, special area plans, a transportation plan, an economic development plan, and probably the most important element of a master plan, because it's what all zoning decisions are based on, is a land use plan. The land use plan sets out all the land use classifications for a community and advises on how to implement zoning so that you can reach those goals. You can provide information in a master plan in so many different ways, including maps, charts, tables, other descriptions, photographs, any tool that helps to explain what you're trying to achieve with the master plan document. And if there's one takeaway from my presentation this evening, it's this slide here. The master plan is a policy document. It is not law. It is the document that guides policy for the municipality of the city of Troy, but is implemented through law, and that law is a zoning ordinance. That is a regulatory document that is based on the master plan. So I hope you're all ready. I informed the mayor before the meeting there's going to be a 100-question quiz, so take really good notes. And with that, I'm going to introduce Ben Carlisle of Carlisle Wortman Associates, and he's going to dive a little bit deeper into how we got to where we are tonight with this document. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening. It's good to be in front of you tonight. When we started this back in 2001, we were on Zoom and doing this during the pandemic. So it's actually, I'm sure many of you thought we weren't going to be here tonight. It took a long time, but I'm glad to be here, and so thank you. So when we start the process of looking at a master plan, the first thing we do as a body and as a planning commission staff is we take a deep dive and review of the existing plan. The Planning Commission did that in 2021. And at that time, the Planning Commission found and we agreed that the master plan as written is currently relevant. It's consistent with the city goals and policies. However, that being said, there were some tweaks that the Planning Commission wanted to undertake. The first was a refresh of uplook and feel and layout. It had been since 2016 since we kind of refreshed the look of it. We added some new pictures, etc. In addition, there was a thought that we needed to update the master plan introduction to give a very clear link between zoning and master plan and what a master plan is intended for. In addition, we updated outdated information simply based on demographics and other information out there. And most importantly, we spent the most time was to review the neighborhood nodes. As this council is well aware, those are kind of the areas that we've seen the most friction in those transition areas over the last 5 to 10 years. And the Planning Commission, in support of the council, felt that it was really important to do a really deep dive of those neighborhood nodes. So we really looked at it from 3 different ways. One was to review the intent of what the node was to be, review each node individually, and then provide design concepts to best portray the vision of what we intended in these nodes. So with regards to the neighborhood node process, there really were 5 steps. And the first was a community survey. And I'm going to go into each one of these in a little more detail. The second was a walking tours. The third was steering committee meetings. The fourth was a council tour. And the fifth was plan drafting. These steps took between 12 and 18 months to come to fruition from when we started to where we are today. But really, they were multiple step-off points where we got a lot of community input throughout the process. So the first step, as I noted, was a community survey. It was distributed to as much of the Troy public, residents, and stakeholders as we could achieve. And it was used first to gather community input. What was important, what was not important, what should we focus on, what should we not? There were some general questions about general master planning topics, but really the focus of the survey was really on the neighborhood nodes because that's where we wanted to gain the most input from the residents. So not only was it used to gather gather community input, it was also used to focus and inform what our planning commission and what the steering committee would focus on and how they would go through the planning process. Based on the survey and the results of the survey, the Planning Commission narrowed down some walking tours of various neighborhood nodes, and there were 6 that were chosen. The 6 that were chosen weren't done necessarily arbitrarily. They were chosen for really one of 2 reasons. The first they were chosen was because there was a unique issue that was identified in the survey. This node had these problems we want to take a look at. The second reason some of these nodes were chosen was because they had some common elements that could be carried over to other nodes that we were looking at. We knew we could not do a deep dive of all the neighborhood nodes as part of the walking tour, but we wanted to find those that had some common elements that we could transfer to other neighborhood nodes. So there were 6 of them. They were conducted in October and November of 2021. And it really gave us an opportunity to walk each of these nodes individually, walk with the residents, walk with property owners, walk with stakeholders, identify issues as they came up almost parcel by parcel, but then carry some of those common themes that we heard from these individual nodes to the community as a whole. After we conducted the 6 neighborhood nodes, the Planning Commission then formed a steering committee. It included 4 members of the Planning Commission, including the vice chair and the chair, and they met 3 times over the planning process to discuss the master plan vision for the neighborhood nodes. They really focused on 3 different elements I spoke to earlier. The first was to revise the node intent statement. The second was to review each node individually, and the third was to provide direction on the concept plans. So with regard to the node intent statement, the Planning Commission and the Steering Committee felt this was really the fundamental element of what we were trying to look at and review. We knew we had to get the vision of what that intent was going to be in order for us to apply those principles to the other nodes within the city. And so we spent a lot of time, we spent one whole meeting of the Steering Committee just going over the intent statement and revising it and redlining it. We looked at the historical past of the nodes, we looked at current conditions, and we looked at what the overall vision, and we tried to incorporate that in the revised intent statement that's in the document itself. And the Planning Commission and the Steering Committee did feel that the revised intent statement really better articulates what the planned vision of the nodes were so that we could express that to the residents and to developers and to property owners as they come through the planning process. The Planning Commission also did go one by one through each of the 21 neighborhood nodes to look at them in total and then specifically go almost parcel by parcel through these nodes to really refine them based on the character of the area. Again, they looked at the current intent statement, historical past, or current conditions, as well as the anticipated vision. When we went through the process, the Planning Commission felt that there were 6 nodes that really were not appropriate. There are 6 current nodes in the current document that really were not appropriate to maintain and be nodes going into the future. And these 6 are DeQuinder and 14, Rochester and Wattles, Livernois and Wattles, Rochester and Long Lake and Livernois, and Rochester and South. So this is just a graphic map. You can see 4 of them are kind of concentrated in the middle of the city and 1 to the north and 1 to the south. They were not taken out arbitrarily. There was a lot of discussion and time thought into why these nodes should be removed from the master plan document as nodes. There were 2 reasons, again, why these nodes were taken out. One was the existing automobile road network they were located on. These were mostly located on boulevards that had high rates of speed, lacked pedestrian amenities, the land use was already set in place, and the building placement was set in place. And we felt going forward that really these were not appropriate places to what we were trying to achieve with the vision of what we were trying to do with the neighborhood nodes. The die was a little bit almost cast with some of these, and again, it didn't do service to what we're trying to achieve with the other particular areas in the nodes. So those 6 were recommended for removal. However, there were 15 that remained. And again, the Planning Commission and Steering Committee went one by one through these nodes to revise the language to make sure that they met the character and vision for each node. And each one, I'm not going to share each one, but each one has its own unique primary use description and character that really matches up to both what's there today what the future is, how it fits in contextually to what we're trying to achieve. So again, they went through every node to do this. I'm a big believer in graphics, and we think that graphics can often better portray what we're trying to achieve than words. And so there are 3 concept plans created. 2 were created at different intersections of the city, and they were to show how infill and how rebuild would be built in our vision of what they should be achieved in nodes. So we showed a mixed views on these nodes, architectural quality, the importance of a transition between a more intense corner development built on the road and stepping back into some of the single-family neighborhoods, because that's where we saw the most tension and the most friction when we were going through this process. We talked about infill development and landscape buffers. There was a 3rd graphic created that showed the gateway intersection to DeQuinder and South. This came out of the walking tours that some members noted that there's a distinct difference between the borders of our community and others, and we wanted to create a more fresh look into a gateway into Troy. So again, these are graphics to try to portray what we're trying to achieve with infill development. The white boxes are actually existing buildings. And so this is trying to show how you can infill sites to, again, provide that transition from the more intense corners, more intense properties along the major roadways. And as you transition, you can reduce the impacts into neighborhoods. This is a similar graphic where these are all new buildings. Again, buildings close to street, architectural detail, mix of uses, and again, we often talk a lot about transitioning, or we call it pulsing sometimes, where you have the more intense uses at the intersection, and you pulse down the intensity as you move away from the intersection into the neighborhoods. And lastly, this is a gateway design that talks about ways to kind of improve the gateway features in Troy: landscaping improvements, public art, transportation improvements, pedestrian improvements, lighting improvements, et cetera. So some of the minor things that we did, I want to note that we did also do was, again, we updated the look. It's kind of a refresh, so new photos, new layout, new text to bring it, to spruce it up a little bit. We strengthened the introduction that I spoke to. Really, there often is I would not say misinformation, but just an education process that can be done through the master plan that talks about the connection between master plan and the zoning ordinance and what the relationship is and how they work together, but also a primer about what is master planning, what is zoning, and how do we achieve that through the city of Troy. And again, since the document hadn't been updated for a little bit, we updated language, removed outdated language, cleaned up language that wasn't pertinent anymore, got additional information from departments with regards to their interest in the plan, and updated the demographic information based on the latest census. So one thing I do want to talk about is process, is how we got to where we are. So the adoption process to date has been, again, the Planning Commission reviewed the master plan. After review of that draft master plan, they then sent a resolution to you, the City Council, tonight to consider a 63-day public review of the document. So tonight, what you're being asked is to consider the resolution to release this for a 63-day public review. So what happens in those 63 days? The first is this draft plan would then get distributed to neighboring jurisdictions, public utility companies, railroad companies, public transportation agency in the county. This is a statutory requirement in the Master Planning Enabling Act. Simply as you have to send this draft plan out for review to those entities. In addition, it allows the Planning Commission and the City Council to, again, review the plan in its entirety and make comments on the plan within that period. And thirdly, it allows for more community input and engagement on that plan. So what do we plan on doing in those 63 days? The first is getting the word out. And so we've created a master plan website. We're doing a social media blast. We have created a video series to kind of describe the master plan, what it is, and what we're doing with it. There will be additional media distribution, and there will finally be displays in public places, library, community center, city hall, for comments as well. How are we getting input? There's a dedicated email address for it. Again, the master plan website will have opportunities to comment through that. Those boards that I spoke of earlier will also allow for comments. There will be a public hearing by the Planning Commission, and public is always welcome to drop by the Planning Department and offer any feedback that they may at any time. So if the plan is released for 63 days tonight, these are the next steps. The plan is released. The 63-day period would expire. The Planning Commission would hold a public hearing on the master plan amendment. The Planning Commission, based on those comments, would then make a recommendation back to the City Council, and the City Council, via resolution, would adopt the master plan. These are the statutory steps that are required by the state to adopt a master plan. That does not mean that there are other opportunities for additional meetings, additional opportunities for additional public hearings if it's so wanted, or working sessions with the council or the Planning Commission. There are other opportunities for input. This is just a statutory requirement that we have to follow to get this process started. Okay, I want to be very clear on that. So, Mr. Mayor, we are asking for discussion tonight, answer any questions the council may have, and then after in discussion, if the council feels comfortable, we are asking for adoption of the resolution to release it for the 63-day review period. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate the presentation from both you and from Brent. It was educational and I think to the point. I know I have a few questions, not so much about the plan itself. I want to ask right off from a process question, if that's all right. I'm trying to understand if we vote to do the public 63-day release right now, and there are changes made to the draft document, does that require a separate 63-day review period once changes are made, or what's the process for that?
Not by statutory requirement. It does not require a doing those 63 days. The statutory requirement is the plan has to be released to the 63 days to those public agencies. Okay, that's the foundation of what the 63-day period is. And again, those comments back by those public agencies are advisory only. The Planning Commission and the Council can accept them or does not. But if there are changes in between the 63-day period, it does not require you to go back and redo the 63-day period. It does allow you to go right into the public hearing and start that process.
Okay. I think my question, I asked that question, I'm just going to jump right there, is that the process in the slide shown, I'm a little concerned that there's been a lot of time worked on this. I have full faith in your department, Brent, your agency, Ben, and Planning Commission and everything, but in the slide that showed process and next steps and in how things have transpired, I'm not sure council has had ample opportunity to sit in a study session or sit in a meeting and discuss some key points, because I think that's, ultimately we're the ones accountable for this. And I'm a little concerned that we're perhaps sidestepping that, or missing an opportunity, frankly, to have a little bit better deep dive. And I don't think tonight's the night to talk about specifics of what's in this. I don't think that's actually what you're looking for anyway.
And that's certainly appropriate. That's certainly something that the council can do. And we can come and have a work session with you in between now and when you feel comfortable releasing it for review. That's certainly fine. It's up to your prerogative. But I want to be very clear that if you do decide to release it, it does not preclude you from inserting comments and going through a review process of it internally, and would not require you to restart the 63-day review period if there are changes. But prerogative of the council is for another study session, another meeting. That's certainly appropriate.
Okay. I'll ask more questions or make some comments. Councilmember Hoderick, you have a question?
I know I want to dive into the nodes more and ask questions. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we vote to release and the public can be reviewing this at the same time we are. But if we were to dive into it and then have a consensus that we wanted to make enough of a change that the public hasn't caught up with because we've already released it, I worry about confusion and then the public hearing down the road at the end of the 63-day being inelegant in the end, that there would be confusion and it would look like we didn't know what we were doing when we released the plan. Even if it's allowable, I don't want a perception. There's been so much work, walking of nodes, working through this, that for there to be a perception that we didn't do this cleanly would be unfortunate, and could create mistrust in the plan unnecessarily, I think. So there has been so much great work. I think as a council member, I would like to have the backs of the people who have been doing that and spend the extra time to do that study session, really dive into it, do the representing of fellow residents that they're expecting of me, and demonstrate it before I would vote to release. I would want to do that first and then work and do the release, so that the community can have confidence that that kind of a review has been done. It's not to say the public might not still have additional input, but they will at least know that we really gave it our best before releasing it. But, and if that would be according to the act, and that would be appropriate, that
It's totally appropriate. And I think we would not feel comfortable recommending you take an action that you don't feel comfortable with. And so, again, statutorily, you can do it, but procedurally, that's another question. And really, it's how this council feels about releasing it before you're ready. And so, we had a conversation earlier about this, and we would totally support coming back for whatever additional information you may need or process you may need to feel comfortable to release it publicly. Totally appropriate.
I know a lot of you watch planning commission meetings. We had a similar discussion at the planning commission level. We presented a draft document to them with a resolution saying you can make a recommendation to council to release the document, or you can take more time and you can wait. It's your document, planning commission, and it's your document, city council. So hopefully you're not taking it that Ben and I are pressuring you to make a decision tonight. The act is a little different because the board that's charged with doing all the heavy lifting on the document is the planning commission. But city council ultimately is responsible for this municipality for approving the master plan. So there's a little bit of a disconnect in the act in terms of process. But having said that, this board is charged with approving the document. And if you're not comfortable with the document at this stage, then why would you release it? You wouldn't.
Which is kind of where I'm at, just to be honest, but
Yeah.
it's two of us. Councilmember Hamilton?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I mean, we would need 4 votes anyway to do it, so if 2 already want to delay, we would have to anyway, but I'm bored with you. I definitely would like more time. I know there's 3 weeks till the next meeting. I don't know, I know Councilmember Hoderick mentioned we could have a study session before we do that. I don't know if I'm quite that far, but I do feel like I need more time to review it before. Because I know it's just a step in the process. This isn't final approval. We could make a lot of changes. But as the mayor said, to release this to the public is to say that that we're pretty comfortable with it at that point. And I agree that I don't think I'm at that point yet. I'm willing to wait 3 weeks or a couple more council meetings before we do this. I did have a question on nodes. I do want to ask this. This is just in my head right now. So the 5 nodes that are removed, what happens to the zoning on them? Because right now they're whatever NN zone. Would we rezone them to what adjacent property is, or do we have a plan for how that would affect the zoning ordinance?
The zoning would revert back to a zoning ordinance, a zoning district that made sense. In all likelihood, they'd probably be, with very few exceptions, comparable to the underlying zoning before there were neighborhood nodes.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask a question? Is there anything that staff, with assistance from our consultant, can do to help you review this document? Like, for example, I'm thinking, could we provide maybe an itemized, detailed list of the changes that were made, so it's very clear? I mean, whatever we can do to give you a comfort level, we would appreciate the feedback.
It's just only been 4 days since we got it. So, yeah, that's, and it's a 200-page document. It's with a lot of supporting.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this isn't a situation where you can do a red line version because they're different documents, but and your memo's fairly clear on what's being changed, but I'll be really honest, the neighborhood node to the west of the city has been Crooks and Waddles. We talk about that a lot. I'd like to talk about that a little bit more, frankly. Like to know and get a better understanding from the steering committee and the planning commission as to the proposed changes, and is that really going to achieve does it go far enough to achieve what we've heard from our community, from our residents, that will also keep the city moving in a healthy and active way? I mean, we recognize there's two hats there. I think personally, I'd like to dive into that aspect a little bit more. I know you've seen this document and you've been dealing with this for years at this point, so you're much further ahead than us, obviously. But to your question, Brent, definitely a very specific, these are the changes, but some of it's the why a little bit, or why not farther in some places. And I think I'd like to dive into a little bit, which is risky when we're dealing with the things we've dealt with. But that would help me personally. I'm just one of 7. I'm sure there's others that have other concerns as well. If anyone wants to weigh in. Councilmember Brooks? Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Craig, you'll be next, okay, after Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think this process was somewhat challenged by the fact that our ethics ordinance prohibits us from attending and participating in the planning commission meetings, because I did show up for one of the walking nodes and I couldn't participate in it. So it's been a very separate process, and so this is our first time seeing it. And I do know that this is extremely important to our residents, and it's definitely on the forefront of their minds and their thoughts as far as as far as the planning and kind of the building up of our city. And so I definitely think it's important for us to have the opportunity to have the time to really, really review it in good detail and make sure that we're making the best recommendations that we can make. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Councilmember Brooks. Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crango. Uh-oh, hold on, we can't hear you, Rebecca.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, there you go.
Can you hear me? Okay, I hope the sound is all right.
Yep.
So beyond the very, very important tactical changes, I think the thing that I feel like I would like more time with, and with all of my colleagues, and would be a strong advocate for doing a special meeting, a special study session, is around a lot of the visioning in it. I mean, it's an amazing visioning guide, and I really thank those who put time into it, and would like also to learn more about the process. How much is that our planning commission members, how much of that is that working with Carla Wortman? But you have a lot of vision around regional transit, sustainability, learning, public art, the economic landscape, things that actually I've always wanted our advance to actually at some point get to those bigger picture things that we're seeking to move forward. But I think the thing I wrestle with is that, yes, these are visions for a master plan, but they're visions for a city. And we are the policy making body and want to make sure that we feel aligned with, because we've been having debate over some of those different topics, whether it be sustainability or other things, or setting up new committees. There's a proposal for a new committee. I think we just need time to be able to talk through those things before we release it out. And I want to learn more about the co-creation, the whole learning section. It's a beautiful vision. I just think that I would see that and would hope that there was a co-creation with the Troy School District, and want to learn about the different parties that were involved, or how we can make sure that they're involved when we send this for public comment. So those are the sorts of questions I have that I feel like I need to dive into better, and feel like we are aligned as a body, because once this is approved by us, we need to stand by this and to make sure that we do stand by all these things.
Well put, Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crango. Thank you. Councilmember Erickson Gall?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to begin by, first of all, just thanking all of the people that did the heavy lifting, as you called it. The Planning Commission as a body, the steering committee, those of you who are professional planners who work so hard at this, because it's beautiful step forward in the right direction. I'm not as uncomfortable with the idea of starting the process, because it is a process. And it's my understanding that even though the 63-day period, we would have to start that at some point, and then there's no adoption of the plan within that period. Once that 63 days are up, there's, if I understood correctly, there's no set time frame in which we have to adopt it after, or not, that there could be a delay of some sort if during that 63-day period, issues come up, concerns are raised. The Planning Commission is not obligated to immediately hold a public hearing. We're not obligated to immediately consider passing it. So that's accurate, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
The 63-day period is again, it's very statutory. It's a statutory requirement that you have to send out to these public agencies for their review and comment. What it also basically says is the Planning Commission can't hold the public hearing within that 63-day period. They have to hold it outside or after that. It could be 65th day. It could be 165 days after that. There's no set requirement of when the public hearing has to take place. The 60-day period is a statutory requirement just to get it released to those public entities.
Okay. And which leads into my next question, which is, during that 63-day period, could council hold a special study session to look at it further, session in which we're not making any decisions, and obviously we wouldn't be the one making the decision, it would go to a public hearing at Planning Commission. Is there any reason why we couldn't conduct a study session within that 63-day period?
I would think it would be okay. I would defer to your city attorney. I would think it'd be okay as long as it's not a Planning Commission public hearing.
Certainly you can have, I mean, again, the statute has prescribed the minimums, so you can add to that and enhance that as well. And certainly it would give an opportunity for some public input if you did have a study session. You can do that within the 63 days, or you can hold off, do that ahead of time, and then commence the 63-day period after you have something that you're all comfortable with. So it's your discretion.
And when this, at such point that we decide that we're going to release it for the 63-day period, would the information that goes out, would it be clear that this is a draft or proposed document that we're seeking public input?
Yes, absolutely. It's a draft master plan document for public review.
Okay. All right. And this is more thinking down the road. Say we go through the 63-day period, at some point they have a public hearing with the Planning Commission. Planning Commission recommends a document to us to adopt. If we decide we're not exactly happy with some part of it and want some tweaking or something, what authority does council have to do that on their own, or do we have to send it back to Planning Commission? Is there a set process for that?
My understanding is that you, since you are the body that adopts a document, you can make whatever changes you feel necessary to make those changes. That being said, where this has happened before, and it's happened before in some of my communities, most of the time they send it back to the Planning Commission for additional study and review. But I don't think there's anything that would preclude you from making those decisions on your own without sending it back to Planning Commission.
And just to add further, I think we would recommend that you do send it back to the Planning Commission. I think that would be the City Administration's recommendation.
Which would make sense to me. I mean, like, as you put, they're the ones that have done most of the work and understand it far better than we do. So I can count votes, so I know where this is going, but I just wanted to make clear that I don't necessarily have a problem with getting the ball rolling here. I think this process has been going on for a very long time, not because there's been a lot of work or we've had issues, COVID and other sort of things that have made it a lengthy process. My only concern is if we don't release it tonight, I would want to see a time frame. I don't want it to just, hang out there and that we have another 6 to 12 months of delay. I think this is a very important document. We don't want to rush it, but yet it has already been delayed for, in many cases for reasons beyond anyone's control. So I don't want the process to stretch out a lot longer. So that's it.
Thank you, Ann. I'll jump on that. Well, I would propose we do a study session for this before our June 26th regular council meeting, because I think we're scheduling another one for June 12th. I know that's a month from now, and that does delay it a little bit. But I'm with you on everything you say, and I'm also, if we're releasing something to the public for review, it gives the perception and the illusion that this is ours, and we're ready for you to say, yes, council did a good job, or no. I mean, that's the perception, I think, for a lot, and that's what concerns me a little bit, plus some of the other comments. And I still don't understand. I guess I want to ask just a follow-up question. Maybe I didn't understand something right. The trigger for the 63-day, let's say we released it, or voted to release it, and the 63-day starts, and you mailed them out tomorrow to communities. If during that 63 days, we completely changed the whole document, we wouldn't need to send it again with another 63 days?
Not under the statutory requirements. Now, that may not be good policy.
It's not good policy, but it's also bad statutory. I mean, to me, that doesn't make sense. Like that is one of those statutes coming from above that are not in the best interest of anybody using them, but.
And Mayor, I think part of it is because those are advisory. The comments from other persons are advisory, so that probably plays into it.
Okay. City Manager Miller?
Mayor and Council, I concur with the mayor's idea that this would be a dedicated study meeting, but I have concerns that a 6 o'clock meeting wouldn't give us enough time. I don't know if you want to meet earlier on a council day or not, but I just think a 6 o'clock meeting doesn't leave enough time.
You're right. That's a good point. So would the recommendation from management or administration be to schedule on, I think it might be difficult to do earlier on a Monday from a work schedule standpoint, but would your recommendation then be to schedule a completely separate evening?
Yes, however, I know how difficult it is to schedule extra study meetings. I mean, we have an email out to council now asking them, and it's difficult to get dates. But we're ready and available to do it on off Mondays or another day of the week.
Okay.
And I readily admit, it's May and we're getting into vacation season. It will become difficult to schedule.
I still think we should push ahead with trying to schedule something, recognizing this is a priority. We've been talking about this for 4 years. I mean, some of us have been talking about this amendment for 4 years, and I do think there's opportunity to schedule it sooner rather than later. Councilmember Hoderick?
I think the number one priority for me to wrap my head around and focus on that has been the most vehement input from residents for years are the nodes. And I guess I would suggest that the June 26th, 6 o'clock meeting, we could schedule that and at least start that discussion. In years past, sometimes we would have a study session that would end, we'd come in and do the regular meeting and then go back in for a little bit longer to just get it accomplished if we ran over. But if we could start with that piece, I think that's where the tensions have been so tremendous. And prior to the 26th, that information of, what it was, what changed in whatever format that you can, I was going to pull out my old master plan, look at what it said about the nodes, and then compare it to what it says now. But it sounds like maybe you could do a little of that homework for me. Many of us, when we ran for council 4 years ago, 2 years ago, this is the topic that was on people's minds. So that way we could keep the ball rolling and dot our i's and cross our t's on that. And then from there, we would understand where we are and where we could proceed. I guess it's our turn to push our shirt sleeves up. Planning Commission has done it. Our fellow residents expect that we do it too, that we're as equally, diving into it. And we often have additional perspectives or different things that we understand than our planning commissioners do, vice versa, by the way. So I think it's just really important that we get a chance to have their backs. There was a subcommittee, the commission, and so I would support the 6 o'clock before council meeting. Scheduling us during summer and vacation season, all of staff, I think we have to try to bridge onto pre-existing things, is my opinion.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yeah, that's an interesting idea that we could extend it after the meeting. I mean, sometimes we have late nights, but we got to do what we got to do, and I'd be fine with that. That would, if we go 6 to 7:15 and we got to keep going, then, hopefully the council meeting can be planned, the main council meeting can be planned to be light if possible to allow us to continue it as they're organizing the agendas for that month. But I think that's a good idea. I would be fine with that, and the 6 o'clock works for me.
Do you need consensus to schedule? You need a resolution to schedule a meeting at this point, which is probably be wise?
No, we can bring it back to the next meeting.
Oh, there's a meeting before.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there consensus to do that?
Yes.
6 o'clock?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Mayor, just want to remind everyone, I will be on vacation June 26th.
that's right.
I think it could go forward without me, though. I really do. But
Okay. Unless that changes anybody. I mean,
It's okay. We got
we know how to get a hold of you if we need you.
no, you don't.
So, no, we don't. You said it, I didn't. Brent and Ben, in the meantime, I think anything you can give us before that can narrow what we're going to talk about in person, whether it's historical, something that talks a little bit about that the vision stuff that Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Cranger was talking about. I think there could be some content. Some of that's carryover from previous plans. I think that historical look might help a little bit with some of that. Certainly the notes and the changes. And to me, a lot of it's, if you can, the why, some of those steering committee conversations, some of those things that really, I think, would help us understand and help us feel, or help me feel like I could proudly say, okay, here you go. This makes sense. Let's release this. And as far as timing, I don't know what the expectation would be after a study session to then bring a resolution at another meeting to do the distribution. But my expectation is, absent this council saying, we want a bunch of changes, which I don't actually see as the issue here, I would expect that the following meeting, or the second, depending on that happens, would be when we would vote to distribute it. That would be my understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Sounds good.
Anything else? Oh, Brent.
Interestingly, I don't think I said it in the memo, but the 2008 comprehensively rewritten zoning ordinance was adopted by the Planning Commission. The City Council at the time did not use their authority to adopt it. This council wants to be more involved. I think it's refreshing, to be honest. Even we scheduled a node tour with this council because you wanted to roll up your sleeves and get involved. And I respect it and support it. I think it's great.
Thanks. No, you know what? I think I don't like to talk about past councils, but I think that was probably a mistake. And then the community now expects it of us, and I think that's important.
Luckily, the document was excellent, so
It was perfect until recently. There you go. So, yeah, all right. Anything else on I-6? Thank you both. I know that you've done a ton of work to get to this point, and your presentation. And again, please convey to planning. I don't know if they meet tomorrow night or when they meet next. That by no means is this a check on what they've done. This is, I think they've done excellent work. It's more about us getting up to speed so we can give our full stamp of approval.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
thanks.
Next up is I-7, 2023 City Council meeting schedule, and that'll be introduced by our Deputy City Manager, Bob Bruner.
Thanks, Your Honor. Tonight, in front of you is a proposal to schedule a special meeting prior to the regular meeting coming up on June 12th to talk about a proposal that the city has received to develop an undeveloped park.
Short and sweet. Any questions? Someone like to move this resolution? Councilmember Erickson Galt.
I'd like to move I-7 2023 City Council meeting schedule as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve I-7 2023 City Council meeting schedule as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion carries. That concludes regular business this evening. Next up is the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Councilmember Abraham's not here. Councilmember Hoderick.
I know, I'm used to her moving. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. If you're here this evening for an item on the consent agenda, all have been approved. Next up, there are no memorandums and future council agenda items to announce this evening. So we move on to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We have a good handful signed up this evening. As a reminder, you have 3 minutes per our council rules. The timer's up here in front of you. Speak into the microphone at the podium and know that when the light turns yellow, you have 1 minute left. When it turns red, your time is up. So first up is Dale Murish.
Thank you, council members and Mayor Baker. As you know, I want to join this council. It's collegial and working well together, and so I'm requesting endorsements from any of you that are willing to do that. And I have some questions. Why all the closed sessions? And you can address that later if you want. And I've noted that all the older apartment buildings in Troy are 2 stories, nothing more. And so there recently was a 4-story apartment building built on a very small parcel of land near here. And that was overlooking people's backyards and their swimming pools in some cases. And so I'm not okay with that. And the master plan, actually, this node stuff, if I understand right, is how you develop the land around the major intersections. And maybe there's different rules for that than the normal thing. I don't know. And I wondered if this council study session could be seen by the public and open to the public. Will it be held in this room? Yeah, I think having it on a Monday when you don't have a council meeting will be great. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Murish. Next up is Graham Bush.
Very much. And a quick hi to Rebecca. I hope this is the right one. So first of all, there's 3 of us here to talk about I-75. I'd like myself to start, then Mike, then Fred. I'm here to talk about the technical result, okay? And basically, MDOT did their survey, they did their work, they agree that the I-75 is far too noisy all the way through Troy. So, guess what? Our measurements, our work, basically they're proving it. Guess what? They're following the federal process, and what the federal process is, you measure a noise, you engineer something, but you don't validate whether or not the thing that you've actually built satisfies the results. So, for example, south of Firefighters Park, they built a noise wall. We tested behind it. It's too noisy. It doesn't even meet their target. So there's a process that they're following. They're not validating the process, and guess what? They've ended up finding out that it's all far too noisy. And of course, if you live more than 500 feet away, or in this study, more than 800 feet, you don't exist. So they're doing the calculation, and if I was going to be rude, I'd say they're playing a game. In 2015, in Firefighters Park, they had 9 virtual properties in that park area. In 2023, they had 110. So suddenly, miraculously, all these properties have appeared in Firefighters Park. So guess what? They said, oh, Firefighters Park qualifies, but there's no money to build it. I don't know. Anyway, bottom line, they've replaced an asphalt freeway with our concrete. You can't go back now. You can't re-engineer that, right? The walls they have built sometimes are incomplete. If you go down to Madison Heights, they built a wall, then there's a gap where 13 Mile is, then there's another wall. Well, guess what? The noise gets through the gap. As a noise engineer, this just feels wrong. Anyway, bottom line, what do we do now? Mike's going to come up and talk about how such things will then progress, okay? Bottom line is, as residents, we're saying to Troy, please, you have to help us. We're a bunch of individual people who've done a lot of work to get us this far, but we're appealing to the City of Troy now, please help us out, because individuals like ourselves, we don't have the meetings, we don't have the clout. Our politicians have been wonderful. We need you to now help us more. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Rebecca. And I'll hand over to Mike now.
I'm in charge, Mr. Bush. But I appreciate that. That was nice. Thank you. I'll go ahead and call Mike Labadie to come up. That's fine. Thank you.
I'll respond to either one. Don't start.
Can you hand him to our clerk and she'll hand him out to us? Sorry. Thank you.
This is just a letter that I sent 3 years ago to all of you and other folks at MDOT. It was addressed to the, at the time, Paul Adjuba, the Michigan Department of Transportation Director. It has a lot of information in it about, we could talk for an hour what's in there, but I don't want to do that. I would like to just have you all refresh your memories. I'll just touch on a couple of points that are part of that. My name is Mike Labadie. I'm now a 37-year resident in the same house. So I have, and I live at 1439 Falcon, right by Firefighters Park, right by Square Lake Road. It's crazy. So Graham gave you a great kind of introduction about what's going on with this. There's kind of 2 things here. One is they identified 2 walls that need to go up, but they didn't really do too much about the fact that there's an impact on a lot of others, and what are they going to do about that, if anything? So we're here to try and say, how do we get past, given the fact that they kind of ignored my letter from 3 years ago, that shows they had plenty of money, they could have gotten all this done with the contractors still there working. It's just irritating. But nonetheless, we are where we are. They spent $300,000 on a study, and they showed up with no plan to pay for it. All they could say is we don't have enough money. We are concerned that we've hit a wall. We've hit an impasse, and we're going to need some help to get further. And it's kind of like a 2-step process, and we're hoping that the city can help us. For your benefit as much as ours, is that somebody's going to have to help us get the first Well, now they're saying 10 million. In their report in 2015, it was only 1.8 million for the wall near my house. So, boy, that thing really went up. But to pay for that, but to look down the road and see what we're going to do with the rest of it. And we need it's like a committee or it's a standing group. I'm not sure how we would do it. And I know you weren't waiting for us to find something else for you to do, but neither were we, and we didn't buy this. I've been there 37 years. We used to have parties in my backyard. We can't even talk to each other back there now. It's ridiculous. So to the point, we need help from you. And we would like to figure out, and I'll volunteer to be on the committee for the next 10 years if I need it, but we need something to keep this process going and keep their feet to the fire. Let's see. I think that's all I was supposed to comment on, so I did my thing, and I got 12 seconds left. Any questions? All right, thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Levity. Next up will be Fred Eckhout.
Mayor, City Council, good evening. My name is Fred Eckhout. I'm a director of the Beach Forest Sub Association. As you may know, Beach Forest is a sub with about 225 homes and lies entirely within about a half a mile of I-75. As such, during the last 2 to 3 years, our sub has been inundated with noise from the I-75 reconstruction project. As a result, property levels have declined, the quality of life has deteriorated, and residents' health has been negatively impacted. In early 2022, residents of Beach Forest adjoining subs of Middlesex and Hickory Heights Woods were so annoyed with the noise that they banded together to fund an independent sound study done by a nationally recognized firm. Findings indicated noise levels well above the MDOT studies. Last month, MDOT told us that our sub does not meet their cost criteria for a noise mitigation wall. MDOT has reconstructed the freeway, destroyed our quality of life in the process, underestimated the noise effect, and then told us it's too expensive to fix. Additionally, MDOT indicated 2 new sound walls met their criteria and then described how they don't really work, since at a point the noise travels over the wall. Beach Forest, Hickory Heights Woods, and Middlesex are not the only subs experiencing elevated noise. The noise is pervasive within the city. The city of tomorrow's image has been tarnished and will remain that way as long as the noise persists. I believe all of you have a general understanding of the situation and probably a very specific understanding, since the noise affects your constituents. But I'm not here to reiterate those details. As Graham and Mike have alluded to, we and the rest of our group are here tonight to request that you step up your involvement in the issue and formalize your role in the resolution process. You might ask what this could look like. One example would be what work groups, the formulation of work groups, to address specific parts of the overall problem. Speeding noise, federal noise abatement funding, best type of noise mitigation, et cetera. Our group could help on many of these issues. We have interested and qualified personnel. We have already laid significant groundwork. At a minimum, we're asking for a standing item on the City Council meeting agenda to discuss progress. We realize you've likely had conversations with other political representatives and, as we have, been stymied in an effort to find solutions. You've probably identified roadblocks. Funding seems to be the biggest one. Quality of work is another. The absolute last thing we want to do is spend millions on ineffective noise mitigation. In any case, we believe...
Mr. Eckhout, can you do
2
30?
seconds. Give me 5 seconds, would you please? Thank you.
No, go ahead.
In any case, we have the full, we believe having the full weight of city government behind the issue will lead to an outcome not achievable by our grassroots citizen-led initiative. And this is how we see the path forward. We hope that you can help us out and you'll be up to the challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Lorraine Scussel.
Good evening, Mayor Baker and council members, and Rebecca. You've heard from other I-75 group members to request your assistance. I have 2 requests tonight. You've written resolutions in the past, and we're requesting that you send a resolution to our governor to state your support of the $10 million pending in the budget for the 2 noise walls that have recently been qualified for MDOT, by MDOT. So in other words, it's pending. There's a line item apparently in the state budget. It's all up for negotiation, but if you could kindly send a resolution of your support, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, as you know, we have traffic noise 24/7 from I-75. However, the speeders, racers, motorcyclists, and loud exhausts make the situation so much worse. It's perfect for them because they have a straightaway for, 10 miles. They get off at Adams Road, they get right back on and head south and race again. It's perfect for them. I contacted the Michigan State Police a few times, and they indicated that they only handle traffic accidents and emergencies, and they don't issue any tickets. We would like to know if the city could patrol I-75 and possibly purchase cameras, something that could deter the speeders and racers, and maybe issue tickets from that. Those are my 2 requests. So thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine.
You're welcome.
Next up is Robert Goss.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, City Council and Mayor. I'm one of the residents who lives in this neighborhood. I live in the Sherwood Hills area. I'm on Melbourne Drive. This highway has come in. The highway has increased in height, and the sound is unbelievable. I have some recordings, that is kind of the sound that I have to deal with every morning and evening, and it becomes, very difficult to be in this neighborhood and live in a situation where you're constantly listening to people, with their vehicles, and understand the highway was built for mass transit, but the biggest concern is that there's one lane that's going to be opened up for, 2 people or more in a car, which will increase the sound even worse, which is close to the wall. I have no wall. All the foliage has been removed. So, the sound is constant. And this is in the evening, of me just in my front yard, and you can see it. I took a video. I can see the trucks passing by. And you can hear I'm in the cars with Hellcats, motorcycles. Sometimes during 1 or 2 times in a year, people who have Harley Davidsons go into Sturgis, Michigan. It's probably 200 motorcycles. If you know what a Harley Davidson sounds like with one, without an exhaust, can you imagine a whole crew of people pass by? So my agenda here, I don't have all the facts and data except for the sound. I did call to reach out to you, Mayor. I didn't get a call back, but I honestly would like possibly if City Council and the Mayor, yourselves, somebody here, could you all reach out to our constituents, our people, like the governor, and trying to address this, I've been there since the late 80s, and it never was like this until just recently. And in like 94, they talked about if we redo the highway, this is MDOT back then, we will look into doing something. Right now, it's not feasible. So please, I'm asking you, encouraging you, please to help somebody like myself and my residents to help me. It's bad. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goss. Next up is Kathleen O'Loughlin. Kathleen? You signed up, didn't you? Yeah.
I'm going to be like a breath of fresh air. I'm not going to talk about your wind and your your noise and stuff. My name is Kathleen O'Loughlin. I've lived in Troy for almost 40 years. And I have been to a couple of your meetings before, and I think that you're generally pretty conservative. But I do have a growing concern about all the residential developments that are being approved. And, well, some of the developments that are being approved, and many of them are multi-residential complexes, and the City Council has approved of them. I caught wind of something that was recently approved by the City Council that I hadn't heard in any of the meetings yet, and it was over on, I think, Livernois and Square Lake, where they're planning on expanding the development and bulldozing a couple older houses to make more townhouses. And I'm just a little concerned about all of these. And with the school board, where they're demolishing of the school curriculum right now, I mean, I think that you want to draw in a lot of these people. I mean, who is going to live in these multi-residential housing developments if they're demolishing the schools? And does the Oakland County transportation tax have anything to do with this? I just wonder about these things. And that's all I have to say, except for Mayor Baker. I think that Senator Weber wants you to reach out to him. That's all. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment this evening for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. And now's an opportunity for City Council and City Administration to reply. I'm going to start, because I can do that. I'm going to start at the very end. Council has not approved the development that you're concerned about at Square Lake and Livernois. There's not even an application into the city yet. There's a potential, my understanding, is a planned unit development that will be submitted. It would go through Planning Department vetting, then Planning Commission with public hearings, then City Council with public hearings eventually. So there is no approved plan for that you had mentioned, so just keep that in mind. As for the rest of your comments, they're well heard. I understand where you're coming from, and there's concerns about anytime we approve a development project in the city, so we'll continue to look at those. As it relates to I-75 noise mitigation, definitely it's been a long road for the resident activists, for sure, and you have done so much of the heavy lifting, I think, that has gotten us to this point, which feels, as I understand, based on some conversations I've had with Lorraine especially, is that you've done this for a few years now, and now you're at a point where it seems like, well, that was fun, but nothing's coming of it, and it's certainly not helping. And I understand that frustration, and I reiterate certainly my personal support. I know this council is very supportive of doing whatever we can to actually make a difference in moving the needle. And I want to just address for a second, that informational session that MDOT did at the community center, I don't remember when that was. I think it was in April or end of March, whenever it was. I left there and I got on the phone with Congresswoman Stevens and said, there's something wrong with the federal rules. You're a federal representative. How can you fix them? And she told me she was going to work with her Washington team to get a commission together to work on that. And she believes there's support from other congressional districts in the country, especially in Texas, who might be dealing with these same issues. So I will follow up with her on that. I also reached out to the Transportation Secretary. I've spoken with Representative McDonald, Representative Kuhn, Senator Weber. And on April 28th, Governor Whitmer was in Troy. I cornered her on stage at an event we were at, and I talked about I-75 instead of doing what everyone else was doing at the moment, which was much more fun. And I talked to her specifically about the issues, and so I did, and I have advocated for this mitigation on behalf of all of you and all of us. Certainly, the 45 seconds that I had with her at that probably wasn't enough to make a huge difference, but I do believe it resonated a little bit. As far as whether or not we do another resolution, if there is a pending $10 million in a budget, I'll reach out to our representatives. I'm supportive of doing whatever we can publicly in that respect, if that helps. Certainly they know, Senator Weber, Representatives Kuhn and McDonald know that we all support that and would do whatever it takes to get that. But I'll definitely look into that from that standpoint. I think, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. Some of the other issues as it relates to police patrol and such, I'll leave that to city management to look and to at least give us some kind of information if necessary. That's a little outside of what we do from up here, but I appreciate those comments coming forward. And Mr. Goss, I apologize if you called and I didn't respond to you. I'm your neighbor, actually. I live in the hills of Charnwood. Oh, it's Facebook. Oh, that's Facebook messages, everyone, are not a great way to get a hold of me. I'll be really honest. So, but good to know. I'll look for it there. But those videos, I have videos myself. And I'm a little further away from the freeway than you, so they're not as bad as that, but it's abysmal, and it's affecting the quality of life in the city, not just for you, but for residents up and down I-75. So sir, Paul, I appreciate it. I can't have you talking right now, but I'm committed, I know we're committed to see what an appropriate next step for us to do is. I think we need to speak, I don't know, I'd like to speak with our representatives a little bit at the state government to see what, if we were to do another resolution, what specifically they may want from us, if that would help them in their discussions with whoever's going to make this final determination. I do know there's a lot of support coming out of Troy to resolve this. So I'll leave my comments at that. Anyone else have additional comments?
Mayor.
Councilmember Hamilton.
There was the one suggestion of a more formal role. I know we have a lot of discussions about different committees we want to do, and I know that there's a process for that and everything, but this is clearly something long-term we're going to be dealing with. As they said, it's not just the areas they said the 10 million would approve, but the entire city. Maybe we need to have some kind of subcommittee devoted to this that can help, that has staff resources that can help these residents that have worked so hard have a little more, a little more things in their arsenal to help push this along. I'm not exactly sure right now what we can do for that, but I think that idea resonated with me. I think that could help them speak with a little more volume. So I'd like us to look into options for that.
Sure. Councilmember Hoderick?
On its face, that seems like a great idea. We are just hearing, and I've also talked to Congresswoman Stevens, where the solutions are for the issues we have, and I'm experiencing it. I'm living with the noise, so know that I'm with you. The federal rules are where, to me, the issues are that then dictate the funding. And we have our Congresswoman's ears. I've also talked to Senator Peters' office before. This is on their radar. And we're not the only community that is going through this. So there is a need to change. We could have a committee here and committee ourselves and meet like I did back in my corporate days and have PowerPoint presentations to one another. I don't know. I don't want to create a false sense of, oh, city council and city staff are going to have a committee, so that will make it happen. Because I think that would be misleading. I think politically, it would be great for me to advocate for that and set it up and attend it. I don't know I want to be candid. I've been around long enough that forming another resident committee to facilitate out of the city it's another meeting that you'll be attending that just has a few city folks now. Our representatives, our senators, they know our city, they know us, they know our city manager, they know our city engineers, they know the issues. I don't want a committee to get in the way of the progress that could be made. So I think continued follow-up, I think we've all individually talked, I know, this is on our minds, we're living it as well. We will continue to do that. The budget process that I've seen Representative McDonald, Kuhn, and Weber even at one point with a joint statement talking about their advocacy for this and working on it in the budget. It's hard because budgeting takes time, and the allocating of it takes time. So it can feel like nothing is happening, but from the get-go and even up till now, there has been constant dialogue, work, and pushing for finding the best resolutions we can for this. I'd like to tap the brakes a bit on being quick to say we could form a committee. That takes resources. And if I thought it was going to deliver an outcome that would make it all better and work faster, I'd be all about it. But my gut reaction is that's not the solution that I think we would all like it to be. Your council members continuing to advocate, for sure, that is the right solution, and I personally will commit, and I know that it's on all of our minds. We talk about it a lot, more than you would probably realize and understand, even as we do interact with our reps and senators, and we will continue to do that. I will commit to that. If we think it would be helpful to do another resolution post-study that affirms our resolution that we did, I forget how many years ago, that I would be an advocate for to, it would help our governor, our senators, our reps see, boy, this continues to be the dialogue in Troy. This continues to be a priority in Troy. That, I think, could be, it would at least, put a fine point on it again. And I know it's in front of them. Put it right back in front of them again, and we could do that. I would want to know what the best language is for that, and maybe we could work on that offline. That would be my...
Thank you. Councilmember Hoderick. Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Craig. Hold on a second, Rebecca. For some reason, you're muted in the chamber again.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yep.
Thank you. So want to advocate for something that I'm not sure if it's in the middle. I agree to add another committee. We're already talking about a number of committees. But if there's some mechanism to just help us keep everything front and center. So I did speak with Senator Weber at State of the City, had a great conversation about this. Lorraine, I still owe you some action items. Lorraine and I, we see each other at the pool almost every day. And partly what happens is we get pulled in all different directions. And so sometimes those action items get replaced by other action items. So if there is a way, and maybe the first step is to work on a joint resolution that we do as a council, and that keeps us focused, because I think right now, beyond the federal, and I'm a little less optimistic, to be quite honest, I think right now, focusing on assuring this 10 million, as imperfect as it is, because there is more need in Troy along I-75, but at least if we can secure this $10 million, that can do a lot. It is last mile funding. And as I have said to Lorraine, I think each of us, all that we can do, and those have been all of our conversations. I know myself, Councilmember Brooks, when we met our Representative McDonald for our legislative breakfast in Lansing with the Michigan Municipal League, that was all the conversation. I've actually been talking with the league, seeing how they can be helpful, and they've offered some insights on different things. So I know we're all trying at every possible angle, but it's true. Different things come at us, and it is important that we're remembering that this is a ball that cannot be dropped because it will not go away.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Craig. Additional council comments or reply? All right. Thanks for coming. You got us refocused. Not that we weren't, but it gives us a different outlook, and we'll continue to reach out and talk about what we can do next, I think. I know we will. Next up, there are no council referrals. We move on to reports. Does anybody have a comment from council on any of the reports this evening? Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Craig.
Thank you. I just want to point out reports O2A interim financial report, third quarter. I'm not sure if CFO Melzik is in, but just really appreciated that, especially looking at the last page around schedule of cash and investments. As there's been a lot of conversation with the economy and the importance of liquidity and for municipalities. But I look at this report and what I see is, we are an anchor, we're strong, we're stable, and that's what's important to remember is no matter what, the what ifs around us is that Troy is a strong anchor. And that is where I find a lot of hope. And if there's anything else that Chief Melzik, CFO Melzik might want to add to that if he's around, always welcome. He's always full of nuggets of information and expertise, and I appreciate it.
Manager Miller? I don't think Ron Melzik is here this evening.
Okay.
But if there's a specific question you submit to us, we'll get it answered.
Thank you, City Manager Miller. Then thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Chairman Krenga. Any other comments on any reports? All right, next up are council comments. Council comments. Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out the Stage Nature Center will be having their walk and run for nature on June 11th. Tickets are available online. It's a 5K walk and 5K run and 2K walk, and they also have the Little Sprouts run as well for the 10 and under. So definitely sign up.
I'll be there running.
And also, I guess, be safe for, Memorial Day.
Good call, good call. Additional council comments? Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Krenga.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Brooks. My son is signed up. I still can't race, unfortunately. So, Mayor, you're safe. You will be our fastest council member today.
Hey,
but I do have William. The thing I wanted to share was, as I was looking at the recent edition of our City of Troy Recreation brochure that comes out, there is on page 28. If you recall, we on council approved this Oakland Together, these senior initiatives. It was capital funding for the bocce balls, and it's escaping me right now outside. I think shuffleboard, but there's an opportunity. It's tomorrow, May 23rd, for a public forum, 1:30, room 402, Troy Community Center. Because that was one of my questions when these decisions were made, just wondering how does this dovetail with, what the seniors are thinking. But I really want to appreciate and call out the Recreation Department for having this forum, having an opportunity for the seniors to come out and share their thoughts and their input around these projects. So appreciate that. Hope folks will come.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Additional council comments? I'll just add, our annual Memorial Day ceremony is Monday, Memorial Day at 10 a.m. out in Veterans Plaza. It's always a meaningful event, and I look forward to being there. And of course, anyone in the community is invited to attend, so look forward to that. That concludes council comments this evening. We don't have anybody signed up for public comment for items on or not on the agenda for members of the public outside of Troy. We do have a closed session. So I will recess from here and we'll pick up in the closed session after. Thank you.